A zoo in Maryland is vaccinating some animals against COVID-19. According to reporting from Axios, the vaccine has been specially modified, and other zoos across the country have reported also vaccinating their animals.
This news comes as Dr. Fauci warned about the possibility of a potential monster variant developing. Fauci also publicly floated a vaccine mandate for air travel, stating, quote, "If you want to get on a plane and travel with other people, then you should be vaccinated." Team Rising is here to weigh in. Michael Starr Hopkins, Democratic strategist and Senior Vice President of Firehouse Strategies, as well as Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief for Real Clear Politics. Welcome to you both.
Thanks. Thank you.
So Carl, is this just a huge embarrassment for the United States that we're such a wealthy country that we can afford to vaccinate animals while billions of people remain unvaccinated around the world? Or am I being too harsh here? There's some actual genuine public health need for this.
Well, you know what? Some people are going to have that reaction, and many people are going to say, all right, we need to redouble our efforts. The United States has already produced more of the quality vaccines and sent them around the world than any other nation. But, a lot of Americans are going to see that. And you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, oh, I need to get my dog vaccinated. Why should my pet needs to be vaccinated? And so, politics, all politics is local, right?
Yeah. I'm an animal lover. I would prefer the animals be vaccinated, I guess, rather than not be vaccinated. Does anyone know? Does anyone here on the panel joining us know which animals? I don't think all animals can get it, right? Dogs can get it.
I think all animals can get it.
All animals can get it?
I think, you have to remember it came from a bat, right? So, a bat is not anywhere near related to a dog or a cat or a gorilla or a tiger. We do know that tigers and gorillas have gotten the virus. We do know of minks getting it, because I believe Denmark, was it the minks that they slaughtered 1 million of them?
Yeah.
When there was a COVID outbreak. Yeah. So we do know. In Australia, I believe that they were putting down dogs because I think it goes through animals, and that's kind of one of the problems, and why maybe Fauci and others are talking about these monster variants that are going to come around, is because unless you're going to vaccinate with a sterilizing vaccine, every single living animal and mammal and human, I don't know how you can stop it from spreading, mutating, and then reinfecting populations. Yeah. They have that same problem with Ebola, because it goes to animals and then it comes back into the humans.
Michael, what are liberals, are progressives ever going to say, no, you have some right maybe to travel even if you don't want to get vaccinated? Or are we landing on the total, the government has every right to require you to do whatever they want, and that's just the way it's going to be?
You have every right to travel. I think you can travel in your car. I think you can cross state lines. But I do think that traveling on a plane is something different. When you're recycling air, when you're in a tight space, it's federal property. I think it's legitimate to say you have to be vaccinated to enter airports and fly across the country or potentially leave the country. That's not really a stretch. The whole problem with this disease is that we can give it to each other, and we have to look out for each other. And the vaccine does just that. If you don't want to be vaccinated, that's fine, but there are going to be consequences for that.
But the consequences are mostly ones that you face, right? Because for the vaccinated people certainly can get COVID. I'm a vaccinated person who contracted it eventually, but your risk of severe disease and death is, astronomically lower. Our hospitals right now are overrun by people who are not vaccinated, overwhelmingly for the most part. So it seems to me, overly punitive and coercive at some point. Leanna Wen was talking about this on CNN the other day, saying that we need to stop the unvaccinated from going out into public life. This is sort of becoming authoritarian and creepy to me. What do you think, Carl?
Well, this has been since the moment this pandemic hit. We've had this argument, and I don't mean it's not strictly partisan, this conversation about civil liberties versus public health. People say, I've seen on Twitter and Facebook and National Review, conservatives, thoughtful conservatives, libertarians, I respect, say, if I've got 2 shots. If somebody doesn't want to get them, that's their business. That they're risking themselves. But I don't. There's a weakness in that argument. There's a couple of them. First of all, if the hospitals are filling up the intensive care units the way they did. That is not my dog, by the way.
Is your dog vaccinated?
And my dog would be vaccinated if I could get him, but I don't have a dog. Anyway, if the ICUs are all full in Alabama and people with other conditions who, cancer and heart disease can't get in, well, that affects them. If you're a vaccinated person and you get the disease, and it doesn't kill you, but it makes you sick, well, that still affects you. And if you give it to a child of yours who's too young to get the vaccine, and that child is at risk, 30% of the new cases are children. If you take it home and you give it to a person in your family who can't have a vaccine because of some other health condition. So we're all in this together, and we don't seem to be acting that way. But people, the question is, the question is this basic. Do Americans have a right to say no to the vaccine? That's the question we're really arguing about.
Can I just say one thing real quick in here? I mean, I think everybody knows my stance on this. I'm with Robbie on I don't think the mandates work, but I do want to bring up the alarming stats that have come out of Israel recently, and that is they started 3rd dose jabs. So they're saying that you are not in Israel. They have a very strict sort of passport policy that you're not considered fully vaccinated in the country unless you've had 3 doses now of the vaccine. However, yesterday, they reported the highest number of cases they've ever had throughout the entirety of the pandemic after millions of people have now received 3 doses of this vaccine. So I think there's some real questions here on how well this thing is stopping the spread. It doesn't look like it really is. So, I mean, how do we reconcile with that? Well, I understand the hospital issue. So maybe if you're going to be somebody who mandates, if you're in that camp, then why wouldn't you just mandate like everybody over 60? Like if you're on Medicare, then you have to because you're the ones who are really overrunning the hospitals.
Well, as we talk, no, go ahead, Carl.
Just real quick, I think that we have to point out the fact that if you get vaccinated, when and if you do get sick, you don't get as sick as you would if you weren't vaccinated. And so
for a period of time,
it does. Yeah. It makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. I think that's something we have to acknowledge as we talk about this. And the big worry is when people don't get vaccinated, that's how we end up having mutations. And as we head into the winter, when everyone's inside, we should really worry about mutations.
Well, again, are we going to vaccinate all the animals? Because if they're mutating inside of the animals, and then we end up with the mutated version that, a reminder, this came from a bat, where the bat was. If the bat was in the lab or if the bat was in a soup, it came from a bat, right? So, I mean what do we do about that?
We should deal with the people first, right? I mean, but, if we did manage to vaccinate the entire world and you suppress it to a place where it's not in heavy circulation, then you start dealing with it like you deal with Ebola and you deal with other diseases. But I'm curious how people respond to Carl's point that if the hospitals are filled up with people who are under 55 and decided that it was their choice not to get vaccinated, and now you have an aneurysm or you have a stroke or you have a heart attack or you need some type of surgery and you can't get it. Like, at what point is that is that the ethical responsibility of the person who made this choice? You would have thought that, or I would have thought that a contagious virus would bring out a community spirit. Would bring out a sense of citizenship and responsibility because of the contagious nature of it. I would have been wrong. That it has brought it out in some communities, but others are saying no. If I want to get sick and clog up the ICUs, then that's my right. And how do you break through that? How do you address Carl's point?
Well, I don't think you can break through it by absolutely coercing, the minority of people who are holdouts on this, make it easier for them to get vaccinated, maybe offer them some kind of incentive, and then actually say when they do that you can go back to living your life per normal. That was the winning message. Get the shot and then you're done. And by the way, none of these mandates exempt people who have had prior infection. And it looks pretty durable.
I think on a flight, and Michael, curious for your take on this. If you can show antibodies, a negative test, or a vaccine, to me that that's doing your citizen duty. Do you feel that way, or do you think vaccine is the only way that we should be able to go on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think antibodies and things like that, negative tests are good. We don't necessarily have to have a mandate, but I understand why people are talking about it for flights. But I think we've got a bigger cultural issue. Like you talked about, we should have been able to come together as a country and do the basic things. Isolate, get vaccines, get past this. But between disinformation and kind of this tribal mentality, we haven't been able to. And I actually worry that this is going to be, a problem for the next year, 2 years, not 6 months.
Yeah. Thank you both for being with us.
Negative tests.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yes. Yes, positive tests did not get you on the plane. Yes.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Although it's important to note, I don't think we haven't heard a lot about outbreaks on planes. It's funny that air travel occupies this, because of 9/11, this very important place in the popular imagination. Right. But to my knowledge, they are not super spreader areas. Thank you so much.
They circulate the air very quickly through surgical air that they're circulating through every couple of minutes. So we're very grateful to our guests for being with us. Thank you very much. And we'll have more Rising right after this.